Hello and welcome to the Business of Story. I'm your host, Park Howell, and I am so proud to welcome Sendable as our sponsor. Sendable is the social media management platform that I personally prefer to handle all of our storytelling online. Sendable has generously offered you, an ardent Business of Story listener, an incredible 30% discount on their traction plan. It's normally $99 a month, but if you use my link, you can get it for just $69 a month. So visit sendable.com/park30 to start your free 30-day trial today.
I thought it was just a stupid picture of a pig in the ocean. But after hearing that story, I had to have it. Now I wasn't just buying a picture, I was buying a story. Story literally made the picture worth more money to me.
That's what businesses are about. People buy brands, people buy stories much more than anything else.
I work with a lot of big enterprise companies, but let's just say I always tell folks, drop the PowerPoint, close your laptops, start with your story.
If you want people to get engaged and you want people to act, you have to tell them an emotionally powerful story. That's with great characters, it's with uncertain outcomes, and it's with high stakes and drama.
All business strategy is a story.
Welcome back to the Business of Story. I'm Park Howell here, and I'm so glad you're here because today we have a client that we worked with several years ago in helping them refine their brand story and what they've done with it and the impact it has had on their business has been amazing. So why this is such an important show today is I am so often asked from people, okay, once we get our brand story dialed in and finalized, clarified, really refined, what do we do with it? How do we activate it? What do we do next? Well, today's guest is going to show you exactly what they did and how they've used it to grow exponentially over the last few years. Now, this is kind of a funny story because I met André Martin Hobbs, today's guest, about 4 years ago. I was at Social Media Marketing World. I was speaking. It was the first time, gosh, it might have even been 5 years ago. I'll have to confirm that with him in just a second. But I was speaking for the very first time at Social Media Marketing World and will be again this year. I think this was my 5th year there. And it's all about brand storytelling and how to create your core brand story to make you stand out. And I remember after that session, we had about 600 people in the room. André was one of the first guys to buttonhole me outside. He came up and introduced himself. Very nice, charming. I mean, you could tell, really smart guy. And we got to talking. He had this little French accent, which I was really curious about. And we were talking, and he said to me, he goes, I'm fascinated by your brand story approach, and I would like for you to come to Canada and work with us for our used car dealership up there. And honestly, I'll be really honest with you here. When I first heard used car dealership, and he went on, by the way, to say, and we work with at-risk buyers. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I don't know if my teaching of purpose-driven brand storytelling really works for a used car salesman. I mean, the experience I've had in Phoenix with them, of course, when you see them, is they're sharks. They're out to take your money. They don't care if you can pay your bills. They will come and reclaim your car in a few months if you don't take it. And so honestly, I wasn't really all in on our first meeting. But then he said he was going to call me in about 3 weeks, and he gave me his card, and off he went. And sure enough, 3 weeks later, André called. And so we started chatting. And then when he told me about their approach to helping at-risk buyers repair their credit through the cars André's dealership sells them, I was really amazed. And so I took on the project, and over the course of the next couple months, we created their brand story, long distance. We did it all online. He went through the story cycle system process, gave me his feedback, and then he and I had several conversations, and we arrived at what I am most proud of, one of the greatest brand stories that I think I've been involved with, and it's probably because I started out thinking there's no way this is going to work for a used car guy. And then when I found out what they were really about, and how their purpose-driven brand changes the lives of their Canadian buyers. It turned out to be a terrific story. And not only that, not only did we arrive at a really great brand story for him, but what they've done with it, how from the very top, through his leadership, how they have carved out a remarkable market position for his company, how they have helped buyers, how they have grown, and how they have used their brand story as the template, as he told me, as the Bible for everything they do, that it's just so great to have him here on the show. And one last thing before I introduce Andre to you is that he and I have been trying to do this show for like a year and a half. And he has just been so busy, we haven't been able to put it together. But I think the universe was working in our favor because we have yet now another year and a half of success on how he's put this story together and to work in his company. So today, listen intently because you can use the same sort of roadmap that Andre has used to build his company. And so without further ado, let's get him on the show. André Martin Hobbs, welcome to the Business of Story.
Thanks, Mark. Nice to finally get to sit down with you and go over this. I've been waiting for or trying to be able to speak to you for a year and a half as well. So good to have you as well.
Now, where are you coming to us from?
I'm presently in snowy Quebec. It's nice out here. We're in Montreal. As you mentioned, we're in the automotive business. So yeah, straight from Montreal.
And I have to see if I can pull off the French name of your company. It is Preto Party.
Wow, you got that 95% right, Mark.
I'll take 95%. How do you actually say it?
So it's three words, Prêt, Auto, Partez. And what they actually mean, Prêt means loan, Auto means auto, and Partez means go. So it's a play on ready, set, go in French. And we've converted it to that, Prêt, Auto, Partez.
Prêt, Auto, Partez. So
Yeah.
do you remember that day at Social Media Marketing World in San Diego when you came up when we first got acquainted?
Yeah, very much so. I as you said, I think it's 5 years ago, which makes this 2015 or something.
I think you're right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and at the time, we had an issue at the store, and back then we only had one store, and we had a great business model. If anyone on your show understands or lives even in the car industry, as you mentioned earlier in your introduction, being in the non-prime sector, which is, as you mentioned, loans that are given out to people that have bad credit, it's not easy to be well perceived by your audience. It's not easy to figure out how you're approaching on a marketing point of view. So when I got to Digital Dealer, obviously I was there for a lot of understanding on social media and everything back then, but it was extremely refreshing to hear what you had to say, and it actually caught me off guard because it got me thinking. At the time in 2015, we had several different websites online. The reason being is that people that have credit issues will fill online forms to try to get a loan to all the different car sales that are out there, car dealerships. And we had up to 22 different websites with different brand names. The only reason there is that we wanted to catch as many clients as possible over all sorts of keywords. So we didn't have a brand at all. We had a great business model. We knew how to, get the consumer confidence once they were at our store. But in order to translate that to social media, which was the goal, that I had when I was there, it's good to have ideas on how to reach clients through paid media. That's all good. But then again, you need to have something distinctive in your way and your marketing and your communication lines. So when I got to your presentation, Park, yes, I was struck because you were providing pretty much a way for me to understand even my own company into putting all the steps together in order to be able to have a story to tell. And we'll go into details on how we did that and how we're actually putting that in place at the store. And now we're 3 stores, and there's a good reason behind it because we have a strong brand. So we'll go into that. But yes, it struck me from the beginning when we actually met.
So 5 years ago, you had 22 different websites, which essentially were your funnels. And you were capturing at-risk, credit risk buyers who really, as you told me, as I understood this, you were directing them all to one used car dealership, and that was your company at the time, and it was not called Prêt at the time. It was something else. But they were looking for just a car. I mean, they weren't even really necessarily thinking about repairing their credit. They had been on their feet, well, ever since the recession. You also kind of described your audience to me as these are people that have fallen on hard times, and it wasn't necessarily their fault. They may have been caught up in the great global recession. Maybe they had a health issue that drained their finances. Maybe they had a divorce that tore apart their financial background and wherewithal. And they had been taking the bus literally for several years, and all they wanted was freedom. I just want the freedom, and the self-respect, the self-esteem you get when you have your own car. So they are like willing to risk it all still to come in and just get me in a car so I can drive around. And you are using these 22 different websites to filter them down to your one used car dealership. Is that right?
That's absolutely right. And, Park, when we got these leads internally coming off these 22 websites, we had a pretty typical approach, which was to trying to convert the client into trusting us and understanding that, we were better than other dealerships. But the story there was extremely short, where we were trying to sell ourselves as a product or an interest rate or whatever. We didn't have a story to tell. So that's the reason why I think working together made us become so great.
So the other basis off of your brand story, and we'll go through that here quickly in just a minute, is that you told me, and I thought this was interesting too, that people would then show up at your car dealership and just like, Andre, put me in a car, just give me a car. And you literally would say, pump the brakes, wait a minute. Before we do that, we need to put you through something a little bit special. Can you tell our listeners what that was? What the next step is when somebody shows up at your car dealership to buy a car?
Yeah. So we had the idea back then, and we were providing the service. It wasn't packaged well, but what we were doing, and we're still doing now, but it's not part of our story. Anyways, the point is that we have clients that come to us with bad credit, and instead of simply sitting them in a car and letting them go, what we do here is that we take the time to explain what their credit bureau is all about. So we pulled, in Canada, there are only 2 credit bureaus, which are Equifax and TransUnion. I know that there's Experian in the US. It's not available here. So we pull these 2 credit bureaus and actually take a good half hour to an hour with our clients to explain them what went wrong, where they may have had a situation in their life, as you mentioned earlier, that happened, either sickness or, as you mentioned, divorce, whatever, something happened, and it shows. So we were showing them where on a timeline where we could see an issue happened, and on the credit side of it, it could be late payments on credit cards, it could be missed payments on vehicles, or even mortgages, any kind of situation. So we were explaining them how to get out of that, how to make sure that their credit bureau would come back to normal. So with a standard credit score, or a higher credit score than what they have. So we were taking the time back then, and we're doing it better now, but we were taking time back then to get them understanding why their credit bureau was as bad, why they were paying as high interest rates, because they weren't trusted by financial institutions anymore. So it was a start. We were telling them that, but as we grew and as we worked with you, Park, that became what we now call our promise. It's part of our promise. They get peace of mind. And you mentioned something very interesting earlier, that we had noticed that their self-esteem was very low when they were getting to us because they had been refused somewhere else, or they had a beaten up car. So they were presenting themselves with, they weren't feeling great at all. So the first thing we now do, and it's part of our brand story, is that we make sure that they understand, even online, but also at the store, that our promise is peace of mind. So yes, you do get a car. Yes, you do get a plan to establish your credit. But what you're really gaining is the peace of mind, and you get your self-esteem back. And this is something that it's not easy when you go from understanding where you need to go. And I will go into details on how we're actually doing it in our stores. But once you know you want to get there and you have a story to tell, and a presentation of your services, it's something else to really get it functioning in the stores. So we'll go into that later, I guess, Park. But yes, it really was helpful for us to set up the table.
And the one word that really struck me that we used as really kind of a fulcrum for your brand story is that word of freedom, because they were showing up looking for that freedom of having their own vehicle again. But you all expanded what that word freedom actually meant in their life. It wasn't just getting that transportation, but it was the freedom, as you said, the peace of mind of understanding where their financial position is, that freedom of actually using this new vehicle that's new to them to start repairing their credit, which is going to even lead to that much more freedom in their life. And I think you had mentioned, do I have this right, that it requires about 2 years of making your payments and demonstrating your wherewithal that you're a good citizen in Canada to repair that credit and start seeing your scores going up?
Mm-hmm. That's exactly that. It's usually between, the fastest could be 12 months, but the average is 20.
Yeah, and so your goal is to demonstrate and work with them and essentially put together a small financial plan using this vehicle to help them repair their credit over the course of the next 2 years. And then you guys also do something kind of special in that you follow up with them, don't you? Like a financial planner would, just to see how they're doing. Might not be every month, but you check in over the course of a couple months.
Absolutely. We call that a game plan. So it's now incorporated into every client we meet, whether we sell them a car or not. We let them know of the service we provide. We're obviously not mandated to actually create, financial planning. So this is not what we do, but what we do is that we give tips and advice on how their credit bureaus got to where they are. And we create some kind of a personalized game plan with them where we make them understand what happened wrong and how to reestablish that. So yes, that's what we do.
It's amazing. You have that one story you shared with me last week when you and I were on a call about a lady. You know the story. Would you mind sharing that with your audience? Because I think this is so indicative of what a powerful brand story, not only well told, but actually delivered on the promises that you make and keep with your buyers, and how it impacted this one lady buyer.
Exactly. So as I mentioned, and part of the reason why we met is because I went to San Diego for better understanding at that time how social media would impact companies like ours. And once we had a story to tell, we started being very, very strong on social, and we have a lot of reviews online on social that are very positive. Even especially in this day and age when there's that many good reviews, and in our case on Facebook we're up to 1,000 positive reviews for a car store in the non-prime area, it may look fishy. My own perspective would have probably been that should I really trust that? Is that really a bot in the background trying to generate fake reviews? So it could be perceived as that. Mind you, they're real stories, obviously. And what happened in the story I told you, and there's many, many different stories, but that story itself is interesting, where there was a lady still lives 8 hours away from where we are. So we're center of Quebec in Montreal, which is the largest city in the province. But obviously, there are lots of smaller cities scattered across the province, and it's a fairly big. I was about to say state there, fairly big province, and within the province, that client lives 8 hours away in a small town, and she drove up to a red light, and just in front of her there was a store not a store, sorry, a car that had our sticker. So a client that came to us bought a car, and for some reason that client was in the same city up north, and so she put the car on park. I walked up to the lady who was actually waiting at the red light in front of her, and knocked at the window, and the lady said, "Yes, what do you want?" And she said, "Well, I have a quick question. I'm interested into learning more about Preto Party. Are these guys for real?" And the lady said, "Yeah, they're real. I went there, and they really are helpful. They helped me to get into this car, and they really fought for me with the financial institutions to get the best rate." And so all that conversation happened at the red light, and the ladies, the light turned green, and people started honking. So she hopped back in her car and gave us a call right there, took an appointment, and within a few days drove to us, 8 hours away to come and meet us. And she left with a brand new vehicle several hours after coming to our store. So it's a great story. There's a lot into that story. Social media is actually, word of mouth, and this is even brought to a physical conversation with a client of ours. But what I get out of that, Park, is that since we've worked together, our brand story, our branding is so tight, is so strong, that someone else who is a client, she actually gave that backstory. She gave that story back to a potential consumer. So that for me was very, very interesting, and it shows that we've done great work here.
So she shared your story verbatim to them. And I mean, that's a really good example of story scale. And your customers are only going to share your story if you intentionally tell them a story so that they understand it, know it, they're not making something up, and then they can share it. But it's also a testament to you and your team, because you deliver on the promises made in that story. And if you're not delivering, it doesn't matter how good your story is. Well, it actually does. The better your story, that if you're not delivering on, the faster you are going to fail. So it's not only leading with a very powerful story, but then delivering on the promises you make there.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? The one thing very interesting that struck me when we met in San Diego, and part of the reason why I did call you back 3 weeks after, Park, is because you've shaken me that day when you said, the brand story is not about you necessarily. It is as a company, and it's obviously that. But the hero of your story is not you, the company, necessarily. You need to put yourself in the client's shoes and see they are the hero in the story. So that vision, that you reversed it. I was seeing us as being, the hero. I was seeing us as being center of the message, and you reverse that, and it really caught me off guard, saying, well, no, it's all about your client first. And even in your story, in our story, clients are always in the center of it. We do work for them. We're the mentor into their life, but it really gave me the right angle, and I ran with that. I really ran with that. And after we built the story, I was running around. I was really happy. And we said, well, this is what we needed. This is how we're going to approach the market, right? So having a client of ours, actually answering someone else in a city 8 hours away from us, telling after a few weeks after buying her own vehicle, she's telling that story to someone else. That's where I knew that we had it made. We were there. Our job was made.
I'm so happy to hear that. And it is a paradigm shift to get the brand to stop thinking that they're the savior, that they're the hero of their journey. They actually play a more important role, a critical role, and that is of mentor or guide. And that's what you all do. You mentor them through their financial planning, you place them into a car that they can actually afford. You guide them through and follow up with them to make sure that they're making their payments, so they're repairing their credit. And the other thing you told me I thought was really interesting is you don't consider your salespeople car salesmen or women. You call them something different, don't you?
Yeah, well, that's also part of our model and that model we didn't have the right way to get it out and explain it, but we decided to, within our business model, decided to totally get rid of salespeople. So we're a car dealership without salespeople. There's no F&Is or desk managers or financial managers, however you want to call them. We have what we call credit analysts. Because we solely focus on non-prime, we're able to have these people answering clients or leads directly and understanding their situation within a few seconds, because that's only what they do. They understand that. So that's actually very interesting because they are now the Yoda in their stories. And that was so powerful with me, not because I'm a Star Wars fan, but it really made me understand who our staff is in our client's life and what they're actually doing when they pick up the phone. They're not selling them cars. They're being a mentor right there. So that we really, really ran with it and made it work. And it does work tremendously well. And this is why we have so many great stories to tell and so many satisfied clients, because they understand. And people that are in the non-prime automotive segment, usually they're not happy about whatever happened in their life. They're not happy about paying high interest rates, because we're talking, sometimes we're talking way over 10, even 20%, and it goes up to 35%. So that's extremely high, and it's hard to get someone understanding that. So when you reverse that into saying, you know what, Mr. Customer, I understand what you're going through. I'm here to help you and to guide you and to give you peace of mind. I understand you want a vehicle, but we're here to help you. And within the process that we made together, Park, we got our brand personality. It came to us. And there's an archetype, very strong archetype, which is the caregiver. But we also found that since we fight with financial institutions, there's a secondary archetype, which is the hero, where we fight for our clients. And this is not replacing the actual hero of the story, which is the client, but us as fighters against financial institutions. So understanding that brand personality, what I've done with that is I've created a document for our credit analysts. This is how we call them. So they could understand what their role is when they talk to clients. And they understand that they're exactly that person within their stories. They understand their role. So not only did we create the brand story together, Park, but I took it to a level where our own ambassadors, credit analysts, understand where they fit within the client's story and where that fits into our own story as a brand. So empowering them with that understanding made them able to become the actual brand, the extension of the brand personality. And we had identified together descriptors that we have, which are, insightful, integrity, respect, educational. So we had worked on that, and I do for everyone that starts with us. And we, by the way, at the time had maybe 15 credit analysts. We're going on 60 right now, or even higher.
Wait, you went from 15 to 60?
Yeah, in 5 years, we had one store, we have three, we're growing. Actually, it's closer to 65 at this present moment. And every time someone starts, they go through the exact document we worked on together. Not all the slides, but I've taken a few slides out of the document we work on, and I have them understand that. And it shakes them, because usually there are people from the automotive industry, and they come to us with a curious eye. And once I show that to them, it breaks them. It breaks their thinking into something different. I obviously make sure that when I do have new hires, they fit into the caregiver/hero archetype. They are that, but they now understand when I do tell them and I do show them who we are within the document that we work together. So I said I'm taking a few slides off that, and then we have video recordings of our clients that we show online to our audience, obviously, as reviews. But we also show that to our new hires, so they understand, coming from clients' words, who we are and how we got our branding into clients. So it's a very, very strong play, and I'm still thankful for that part.
Oh, well, I'm thankful for you sharing your story with you, because you are like the model client in that not only did you understand and embrace your brand story and really got it crafted to express the core, authentic differentiator that is Prêt Party, but you have just so completely focused on how to activate it and build upon it. It's one thing to create the story. It's a completely other thing to make it work, to tell it, and to get your people. And I love the fact that you're using your brand archetypes, that caregiver, that primary caregiver archetype, backed up with a little bit of that hero saying, we're going to go, to bat for you with these financial institutions, that you're actually using it to find the right kind of credit analysts, to use it as kind of a personality marker or test to bring them in, just to make sure that they are strengthening your brand position and personality versus weakening it. I got to ask you, when people come in to interview for a job, are they coming in thinking, well, I'm a car salesman and I'm going to be able to work for this great company and sell cars, and you have to reframe their thinking as a professional and saying, look, you're not a car salesman here. You're actually a credit analyst helping our customers. So does that take work to reframe their thinking?
Absolutely. And we go through this. As I said, we're at 65. We've probably gone through 80 because, over time, some people leave. So maybe we've gone through 80 of these, and I've been into most of them. And I would say that now, let's say in the last 2-3 years, they kind of get who we are before getting to us, because they usually either know who we are, because we have become the largest non-prime car dealerships in Quebec.
You have become the largest non-prime car dealership in Quebec. 5 years ago, you call them a store. We call them a dealership or a lot here. So I guess we're talking about the same thing. You had one, and now you're building your fourth.
Yep, we're getting there. We just bought land, so we're focusing on our fourth now. And yes, people know us. And when we do have new hires, usually they have gone either through our website and social, where they, we're very strong on our brand, so they understand from the get-go. But we do have sometimes people that, as you mentioned, will come to us. They're either salespeople from the car industry, or F&I managers, as we call them here, which are, desk managers or credit people. And they come to us, and we need to break their mentality, because they're used to the way dealerships work. And by the way, just dealerships are ripe for disruption, because the way they work is completely reversed to what consumers want these days, which is transparency and so on. But anyways, the point is that they have to be broken in order to get with our system and understand. So it's become even a brand culture. So it moved from a story, from branding to HR, and it's become culture as well. And it's obviously happened over time. It's not something you can do within 24 hours. But it did start there. It did start by saying, oh, okay, it's not about us. It's about the client and how we tell them our story, and their story fits into ours, and vice versa. So it started there. And when we have new hires, it's right to say that it takes them about 2 weeks to really fit into the model, up to 2 weeks. Obviously, some fit right away. Some have to, break their mentalities and what they go to and fit into our model. Yeah. So it takes sometimes up to 2 weeks.
So it really helps you shape then your workforce so that everybody is backing that up. Let's talk about the buyer. So tell me if I've got this right. In the industry, defaults on loans to at-risk subprime buyers runs around 6.7% or something like that?
Yeah, exactly. So within the industry, it's the full industry. We're talking prime and non-prime. It's way lower. But when we focus on non-prime, we won't go into too many details, but there's the near prime, subprime, and deep subprime. So within all these three together, especially subprime and deep subprime, it goes up to 6 and sometimes way higher. But an average of 6.7% is the number I got, which is an industry number. I think it's it's North America, so it's US and Canada. So,
and these are the people that default and stop, paying their car loan, and they have to go and someone has to go and collect their car, and they're right back in the same position they were before, right?
Absolutely. So the average is about that. And we work with all the financial institutions that are available in our province. So we have them all. And we know that our store produces way less, actually half of that. So our segment should be way higher, should be around 6.7, and we're lower than 3%. So, or just near 3%. So, yes.
Yeah, so you're more than half that. So the work you do with your buyers then through, again, really this focused brand story of helping them get back on their feet, you are cutting that default rate by more than half. That's
Absolutely.
Pretty amazing. That's talking about fulfilling your mission.
Absolutely. It's part of our mission. It's part of making sure that we do have our clients understanding why they got to their situation, how they can get out of it. Financial institutions like us for that because we represent less risk. So they're also giving us better interest rates for our clients because they know that with our planning and with our game plans that we're handing out, our clients are empowered with that, and they will usually make sure they don't fall into default anymore.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy then, with being super focused on helping them rebuild their credit through the proper car purchase, that it reduces the default rate, which helps everybody, not only your buyer, but it helps the community at large. And it enables you to get better rates from your financial institutions, which I got to believe then adds to your margins and your bottom line. So helping people first and foremost actually generates a better business for you.
Absolutely. And if you remember, well, you probably remember because this is what you do, but I'm talking to myself here. I do remember that we had talked about, stakeholders when we went through the storytelling, and not only was it for our clients, but also for our suppliers. So when we worked on that, there was also messaging for our suppliers, which are financial institutions mostly, and empowering our own staff with a branding and with a story made them understand how they approach the financial institutions as well, saying, hey, you know what, I'm trying to help you, bank number one, to get a client here and making sure that he does not turn into default. So that got us into a new light for the financial institutions as well. So it really works with everyone within the dealership's ecosystem, whether they're clients or employees or suppliers. I feel like I'm promoting your brand here, but it's really true.
Well, thank you for that.
So it's important to, and one thing I would like your audience to know, Park, is that it's once you have the plan in hand, you need to that's where you need to sit down and understand how you're going to approach it and make sure it works. And I would suggest to start with employees, start with your staff, make sure that they understand what you're working on and how you're thinking about it, make it theirs so they also are part of that new way of looking at the market and branding yourself and telling a story. And making sure that your staff fits in that vision is also extremely important. So if you have staff on board that do not follow and cannot, unfortunately, if you make it a culture thing like we've done, if they don't fit, they have to go. And we've had this issue with people in the car industry that only think about their pay. So they'll try to sell the most paying vehicle, which and with the most, as many guarantees and we call it the F&I product. So as the highest paying financial contracts and so on. So we make sure that these people would not stay with us because they're only thinking about their pockets, but they're really destroying the client by creating future negative equities on the vehicles they buy and so on. It is part of our trade, but we're trying to reduce it as much as possible. We're trying to help the client. And mind you, our bottom line is extremely high. I mean, we have clients that come to us. They're happy buying cars, a second time and a third time in order to fully get out of the non-prime segment. So it pays off a lot because our cost to get clients is, we're talking cost of leads here at Park that normally for non-prime is around in Quebec $75, and we average around $15 per lead.
Wow.
And the reason is our branding is so strong. When you get to a website and you see that there are reviews and you read the reviews and you see that there's not that many negatives, and if you read the negatives, we also make sure that we still go on with the same story. And everywhere we have the same branding, the same stories, videos about our clients saying that this is part of our system, this is what we do, we're really, really honest and authentic. They get that. They apply online, where at our store, they feel they can trust us. And if you compare with other dealerships, they won't really apply there because it's just another lead form, right? So that's why our margins are also high. It's because our cost for acquisition is way lower than what we get with standard dealerships. So it's all part of a bigger plan. And obviously, when we met, I did not know all that. I was simply trying to figure out how we would approach the market with our branding. And it got to, every side of our company is now under that same brand. So, yeah, it really, really was.
So your audiences in order of priority to me sounds like employees, number one. And I'm so glad to hear you say that because you have to get your employees on board. In fact, I was working with a customer here in Arizona, and it was right before the holidays. And one of their salespeople said, well, why do we have to worry about the employees? I mean, they're kind of like a captive audience. They'll just do whatever we tell them to do. And I'm like, no, that doesn't work anymore. You can't do that. They won't do whatever you tell them to do. You have to get them to buy in, to self-select, to make your story their story. And for those that are unwilling to do that and it just doesn't fit their lifestyle, that's totally cool. Allow them to vote themselves off the island and go and replace it. You had mentioned to me, too, that you had a few of your salespeople leave after the news story was created and then come back because they felt like they could be more productive and actually make more money working through your program.
Exactly. And, going back to this employee thing, it's extremely important. And I would sincerely think that people that don't fit the model or the vision should leave. It's unfortunate, but it is like that. We're, into a competitive landscape in every area, whatever you're into car sales like I am or anything else. Usually you have competitors and you need to have your own story that needs to be fairly different than the other one. And if you do need that, well, if you don't have your employees backing you, yes, they're working 9 to 5 or whatever, and they go home afterwards and it's done. Yes, absolutely. But they all have to go in the same direction. If you don't have that, how can you be competitive, right? It's like that in our day and age. You need to have everyone focusing on the same target at any level.
When you have to attract and retain the absolute best talent, but they have to be talent aligned with your brand story. So you placed your employees as your number one audience in launching your new brand story. Customers, I imagine, are number two, so that they are buying into it, they are experiencing it, you're delivering on your promises, and then they are resharing it with the world, so you're getting new prospects. And you said, I just want to underscore this, that the typical cost per lead in your industry is $75, and you've been able to reduce that to $15 purely because you were able to clearly communicate your brand story?
Yes, exactly. And if we go into details, there are digital people around you, and you're, talking to these shows. There's several different ways to get clients online, and you can go through, organic or paid, and social and search. Everyone knows that if you have organic, it's because usually people know you. And if you're not, bigger brands like Adidas, Nike, or whatever, and you're launching a new shoe company, it's going to be very hard to get organic unless you have something special, unless people search for you or understand who you are. So if you don't have that, then you're going to pay high fees for, leads or conversions, because you need to be, within the group and everybody else. So it's been very important to make sure that you have something strong on your side, which will generate organic leads. And our cost of $15 includes organic and paid. So that's why we have a lower paid cost for conversions and leads, and also a higher organic, which costs us way less because people know our brand, they live it. There's that lady, for example, or neighbors that talk to each other. There's a sticker in the car, so they get them talking, and they see that our story is for real. So all that together plays a big role into organic conversions and leads. So that's why we're as low as $15. Yes.
And then you told me too that some of these folks that had left and come back, and the credit analysts you have now, which AKA car salesperson, but they're just helping people connect with the right car, say they like working for you because they actually don't have to sell. I thought that was kind of interesting, that people are just showing up self-selected saying, I'm buying, you don't have to sell me anything. What do I have to do next to get one of your vehicles?
Absolutely, because they're they're pre-sold because they've seen who we are on social. We do a lot of video testimonials with our clients at the store, because I believe that it brings value, making clients that maybe would not be trustworthy of us, even though we do trusting us. Understanding who we are and how we're really making it work. So yes, we have clients. Not clients, but we have staff that left us, became, standard salespeople or financial managers, and they come back to us because it's much easier with us. Our clients trust us way more than anywhere else. So if they go and we do have, yes, employees that came back and said that it's easier at our store because we have some clients that are, preaching our service. They're understanding who we are, and so newer consumers that walk into stores already understand who we are, already understand the service we're providing, and we've started to have copycats, but the copycats we have don't have a strong culture the way they have. They're only trying to say, well, yes, we're going to help you reestablish your credit as well, but it means nothing if you have one little thing but not the whole brand to support you and employees. So yes, just to answer your question, we do have employees that came back to us and letting us know that it's better at our place. Yes.
Well, and it's not surprising to have copycats then when they see the success you're having. But the difference is you have taken the time to truly understand a brand story that is authentic to who you are, first and foremost, as a leader of the organization, and then have done the heavy lifting and have had the belief in the fact that your purpose is more important than just focusing on profits, that the profits are going to take care of themselves. So these other companies show up and they want the quick fix. Oh, it's working for Andre, I'm going to do the exact same thing. But they don't have the depth of the offering and they don't really back up their story. It just becomes BS. And consumers can smell that from, 8 hours away. They and their employees aren't buying into it. They're rolling their eyes saying, oh, this is a bunch of BS. It doesn't work. The third level of audience, I think, is interesting. So you got employees to get them to buy in, customers that are now showing up. You don't even have to pre-sell them. You are helping them repair their credit through the vehicle. And then you've got these financial institutions that said, I'm all about working with Andre and their gang there because I know I'm not going to have to deal with a bunch of defaults. And oh, by the way, that's of interest to me enough that I'm going to reduce your cost of loan. So that even adds to your margin. So all the way around, this is benefiting you in the pocketbook. And I know that's not your core thing, but we're all in the world, in the business world, to make money. You got to make money if you're going to be able to deliver on your purpose-driven brand story. But you end up making more money doing it this way and helping more people. That's the beautiful part about it.
And you know what? Just to add to this, I recently had a financial institution coming from another province where they're not active in Quebec because, as you know, Quebec, we're French-speaking here, and our laws and regulations are different. So there are some lenders or financial institutions that choose not to get into Quebec because, there's a cost for that, legal cost for that. And if they ever consider coming to Quebec, we're on their number one list. And there is a company not far from here, from Ottawa, who came to us and said, well, there's only one player we really want to get to in the province, and it's you guys. Not only because you have the highest volume, that's a fair statement, but also because we know that you're cutting losses by half. So it's made us become big, and we're considering about going into other provinces because there's nothing else like what we have here. As I said earlier, there are other people in the non-prime segment, obviously. A lot of buy here, pay here models and, standard dealerships that have the little checkered flags that say everyone's accepted at credit and so on, but they have no idea what they're doing and they're not focused like we are, with a very strong message and a very strong approach that covers, as you said, employees, clients, and financial institutions, which are stakeholders. But there's even a fourth level, in my opinion, and that fourth level for us is our suppliers, which are not necessarily financial institutions, but suppliers that are working for us in communications. So, for example, I used to handle the social media part of it myself. When we originally started, I had a business partner back then who was helping me as well. We started a small, team, and we had a few people working social internally. And as we grew 2-3 stores, it became impossible for me to be able to supervise these people. So I had to give out a mandate mandate an outside company that handles our social. And I was not keen on the idea because I preferred controlling it from the inside. But what I've done in order to make sure that they would understand who we are, so I had them go through the same process as a new employee. I had them read the full document that we've worked on, so they could get a broader picture of what we're trying to do here. And so they started working and answering to, there was an FAQ, an internal FAQ, and that was written in the right way. So, it's as a company that our messaging would follow that brand position. But they, as a team, understand even everything we've worked on, together, Park. They even have that as a Bible, as I said last time, which is a tool they refer to if they have questions on the branding, if they have questions on our brand descriptors or personality, purpose, whatever statement, it's all in there. So it's a document that all my suppliers, which are into marketing and branding and communications, use in order to default to. And we've grown, so we're extremely strong on marketing, and we've grown to having someone that I call in French, it's le gardien de la marque, which means he's the not the goalkeeper, but he's the person that represents our branding, and he supervises everything we do according to what we worked on. It's a bit, I'm not preaching for you, but I am in a way, Park. What I'm saying here is that we use that document thoroughly. We've obviously made it ours over time. It hasn't changed much from what we worked on. We adapted it in some areas, but it's still the same core. And that person reads and approves our social media messaging. He reads and approves our paid campaigns on social and search. It's all, even the video production goes through this guy, and he makes sure that everything reflects our brand personality. And that's the only reason why I pay him. He does not create material. He does not write anything. He simply makes sure that it fits our model. So because we can then, we're able to switch suppliers and work with newer suppliers or, different people. If they're busy, we'll use someone else. And he makes sure that our vision is the same on all our platforms.
Your brand story goalie. I like that. Preserving the win by making sure that everybody is sharing your brand story accurately, it sounds like.
Yep. It's a great way to translate it. Yep.
So you've had this tremendous growth over the last 5 years. You're building your fourth dealership. You've gone from 15 credit analysts to 60. You told me you've pretty much doubled your workforce, going from about 50 to 100 plus people.
Yep.
How much of that growth would you attribute to dialing in your brand story?
Well, obviously, to compare, I would have had to run the same model we had then in parallel, but I can very easily say that we now have a story. We didn't then. We would have been like the other stores. So if I compare the size we had and other dealerships that are in the same area with the same model we had back then, today, they're pretty much the same size. I mean, they've grown a bit, but not really. The only reason why they've grown is because, the segment, non-prime segment, has grown a bit over, the past 5 years, both in Canada and US, by the way. But I would say that maybe from 15, we'd be close to 20 credit analysts, but we're at 60 with 3 stores, and we're growing even as we speak. We've had new hires this week. So I would very easily say that we're times 3 what we would have been if we hadn't worked together.
So you've grown by 3x because of your brand story of getting it dialed in.
I really, really believe so, yes.
That's cool. Now, what I'd like to do is I want to take a quick break here for our good friends over at Sendable. And when we come back, I want to share with the audience what the elements are to your brand story, of how this has all come together. And I want to, of course, we'll end that with your unique value proposition that essentially wrote itself after I had a complete understanding of who you are and what you were about and how you and I worked together to craft your brand story. And I remember your unique value proposition just going bing in my mind. And it became so obvious, I thought, I can't possibly be it. But then when I shared it with you, I think we both laughed. We said, gosh, that's beautiful. So let's cover that right after this from our friends over at Sendable. Many of you have been following me in the Business of Story on social media for a while now, and I really appreciate it. And if you're not, I hope you will. We share valuable business storytelling tips to help your brand stand out among the awful noise out there. And we do it all thanks to Sendable, a social media management platform that helps over 3,000 digital agencies worldwide to work with their clients, breathe life into their brands, and get their stories heard on social media. What we like about Sendable is they make it super easy to manage your content and your stories online. They allow you to source content from clients and collaborate closely with them to create a social media strategy built on true and proven storytelling principles. You can reliably plan and schedule content to be automatically published to Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Pinterest, and more. And you can demonstrate the impact that this content has had on your audience growth and conversion by reaching out through their in-depth reporting and analytics. There's much, much, much more that you can do. But you know what? I think maybe my favorite feature has to be Smart Posts functionality. Now, what Smart Posts are is it makes it incredibly easy to craft social media content and in one single step, customize it for each platform, giving you the best chance of driving engagement and getting people to pay attention to your content. Sendable truly makes managing so many channels an absolute breeze. I know, you have a lot of choices when it comes to social media management apps, so I wanted to let you know we here at the Business of Story can't recommend Sendable enough. Gavin and his team are so great that they have a special offer just for you. You can now get, as a special offer for Business of Story listeners, Sendable's Traction Plan for only $69 a month. That's a 30% savings. So sign up now at sendable.com/Park30. Believe me, your stories will take off. Welcome back to the show. Park Howell here with my good buddy André Martin Hobbs and his used car dealership that helps people repair their credit and puts them back on the road to financial freedom, called Preto Party, or I guess roughly translated in English, Loan Car Go, which is a play off of Ready, Set, Go. So getting people back on the road to financial freedom. Before I go through and just quickly, and we've already touched on a number of these, your core brand story elements. Preto Party was not the name we were working with at the time. This story sounds like it helped you arrive at that name. Can you tell us how that went down?
Yeah, so back then we had, as I said earlier in this podcast, we had 22 websites and 22 kind of brand names. They weren't registered, but they were keywords that are used in our industry. So, they would translate to car loan, to financial, loans or financial cars or financing cars or all sorts of, keywords that are used on search. So we had a lot of those, and we wanted to create one umbrella, one brand that would bring all that under one, real identity. And when we met, I didn't have that. I was playing with the idea, and it was all right. We had found some kind of a name that would fit. And if you remember, we were calling it Auto pour tous, which means cars for everyone. So we were trying to say that cars for everyone, you would have people coming, whether they have good credit or bad credit, they would still see us as, a store, a car store. So it was no different than, you have a lot of similar names in the US, like Cars Gun and so on. I mean, it's just another dealership's name. There was not much to it more than being like the other guys. So it was that. And then we worked together, and I still had the 22 websites and lots of questions on branding. And as we went down through all the points in your, in your structure here, and went through finding our proposition and our promise and gift and personality, a brand personality, that is, it finally got us to a funnel into one phrase. And the phrase had our name in it. And when we got that phrase together, we still had the name Auto pour tous, which is cars for everyone. But that part did not fit, in my opinion. The rest of the phrase worked. It worked. Our unique value proposition was great. As you mentioned, it fell in place perfectly. But the actual name did not follow with it. So that's why we went on searching and trying to find the best name. And it struck us one day, because when people come to us, there's the within their life story. So our customers, if we follow what we work together, they have their own stories and their life and its life cycle. And when they meet us, it's just after something happened that got their credit going and falling into cracks. And they're into that, portion of the story, that step where they need to get a mentor coming over and giving them a roadmap to establish their credit. So we knew we were intervening at that step within their life cycle, story life cycle, but we did not know at the time how to call ourselves. And this is where the Ready, Set, Go came into play, because obviously it's a play. Ready, Set, Go is not perfect, because the play in French, ready could be also perceived as loan. So it's different here, but prêt means alone or ready. So we had the perfect name where it would say Ready, Set, Go, which is loan, set, go, or loan, car, go, which is the perfect translation. So loan, car, go, right? And we're at the point where it's kind of a race, or it's kind of an original step, a step forward for someone to say, well, now you have a plan. Now you have a direction. You have a game plan to establish your credit. You know what to do. We've given you the roadmap. Ready, set, go. So
it's a nice call to action too. It's like charge.
Exactly. Absolutely. So after looking at our, work together and understanding everything and understanding where we took place within the client's story, then we said, okay, well, we changed it for Prêt Auto Partez, and it makes a whole lot of sense. And even the logo has a small silhouette holding a green flag. So it comes together saying green as in approved instead of red, or as in go as a green light going forward to your future. So it fits perfectly. So the name came after working on the brand story element that we did.
Yeah. Well, let's go through those elements real quick. And this is what our 10-step story cycle system does, did for you and does for others. And we start at the very beginning, the backstory of understanding what your functional position is in the marketplace. I mean, literally, functionally, what you do different and therefore better than your competition. We start with that, and then we humanize it. We build on it throughout the whole system. So the very first step, the brand position, is probably the least human thing that we do as we humanize a brand. And your brand position is Prêt Auto Partout, is the number one resource for subprime car buyers to purchase a vehicle and begin repairing their credit. And I think it's that last part that's probably the most important, because the first part, subprime, number one resource for subprime car buyers to purchase a vehicle, well, that still keeps you in the used car sales business, basically. But where the differentiator comes in is that absolute focus on to begin repairing their credit. That starts at the dealership, starts with you before they really get involved. So that was really your core differentiator.
Absolutely.
And as you mentioned earlier, your brand promise is emotionally, is when we think about the promise. And there are different people think of a brand promise in different ways. The way I like to think about it with the story cycle system is emotionally. What do people get when they interact with your brand? And that is everything from your employees to your customers to your financial institutions and suppliers. And you and I arrived at this idea of peace of mind. Your employees want to know they're working for a brand that stands for something bigger than just selling used cars to subprime buyers. The fact that you're helping them repair their credit, that's huge. Your customers, of course, as you had mentioned earlier, described how they get the peace of mind of working with you all, knowing that you're in their court and not just trying to sell them something. You are there to help them repair their credit. The financial institutions, man, peace of mind of working with you because I know that your buyers are going to pay their bills. So I'm all about that. And then, of course, your suppliers, the peace of mind of knowing what in the heck to how to tell your story and be successful in the telling of that story. And all of these get to roll up into a purpose-driven brand that stands for something bigger than just what it sells. Then we haven't talked about it yet, and we'll just touch on this briefly, but I'd like to get your insight on it. We then go from brand promise to brand gift. And people go, well, what is the gift? And if brand promise is the emotional side, the gift is the physical side. It's what you give them in their life. You gift to them that they wouldn't have without you. And in your case, we arrived at a really interesting but very appropriate gift, and that is the simple word of transport.
Right.
Your gift to them is transporting them from this world of unhappiness, of not having a car, of having lousy credit, into this new world of freedom of having a vehicle that is repairing their credit, and the vehicle physically transports them somewhere else. Can you tell us how you're using that gift in how you tell your story?
Yep, absolutely. And you know what? I'll step one step before that is before we met, our promise was a car. So in a way, I came to this and it said, well, our promise is transport. And then you kind of reverse that, saying, no, wait a minute. Your promise is not transport. That's your gift. Your real promise is peace of mind. And that also steered us in the right direction into putting that, brand together and those communication lines. So as you just mentioned, as far as brand gift, the transport between situation A when they come to us and B when they leave. So it takes physically place in our store. And you know what? We're extremely lucky to be in that situation as a company. We're extremely lucky to take our clients by the hand and physically transporting them to their cars, their new cars, which is, yes, transport for themselves, but also we've done the work of transporting them with their help from point A to point B. So transport is a big word here where it means two things. And as I said, we're lucky to be in that situation. And I would suggest that clients of yours understand what difference they make and where they physically make that difference happen, and make sure that it becomes their brand gift with more than that, as a promise we have here of peace of mind. But the actual gift is extremely important because we make sure, if we talk about transport, the vehicle itself, there's also a mix of promise in there, because we're saying that the vehicles we give them are recent, they're still under warranty, they won't break. They have been fixed. There's nothing to do mechanically on them. So the peace of mind is also incorporated, obviously, with the gift. So they go in tandem, but it's very important to distinguish both and understand that, yes, you do have a promise, but there's also a gift that comes with it. That gift, in our situation, is from point A to point B within their stories, within their lives, and also the transport, which is very recent, shiny vehicle that won't break on them.
Yeah, great example of it. You're thinking of the promise as the emotional impact you have, and the gift is the physical impact you have on them. We talked about your brand personality, so we went through the archetyping, really playing off the 12 primary archetypes as made famous by Carl Jung, and you arrived at the caregiver with a hint of the hero in there because you're working on their behalf. And then we look at these 9 brand descriptors. You have trustworthy, insightful, integrity, respect, educational, honesty, authentic, friendliness, and humor. And where you use these, of course, and where we coach our clients to use these, is use them as themes to go out and find little anecdotal stories that back up your overall brand story. So say the theme is trustworthiness. Tell us a story, a time when you helped a customer, it could be, or you helped an employee or a financial institution, that the moral of that story of what went down, what happened, demonstrates and illustrates the trustworthiness of your company. And you do these with all of them. You use them as touch points that your employees can use for testimonials. Instead of case studies, we like to call them case stories, because I want you to focus on the moment that underscores what this particular theme is, that is a personality trait within your organization.
Yep. And you know what? I said earlier that we do have the brand story goalie, or that person, right, that impersonates our brand story, and he supervises all the communications that are done by all our different suppliers, and they have the descriptors, and they know this is what they need to put forward. They know that this represents us. So they make sure when they have videos, for example, they push on Facebook, it's going to touch one or two, sometimes three of those within one video. It's not necessarily just one video per descriptor here, but it fits as one, right? As us as a company. Humor, by the way, is very, very important in Quebec. Ads, online ads or video ads on TV, they all incorporate humor because it's part of our culture here. So it was needed. It is still needed, but we don't make jokes online about cars that break or cars that are repaired, or it's not that. It's part of a bigger scheme where we bring descriptors into, our stories, our clients, and whenever I address my audiences, I always have these good descriptors close to us, and they become part of the culture internally as well. They're not just about saying this is who we are. It's just about living that this is who we are. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that was important for me to bring up.
And just having this conversation right now dawns on me, the term brand descriptors is very academic, and I think I'm going to change that simply to personality traits. These are the 9 primary personality traits that show up in your life every day as a brand, and these are the traits that get reflected in the stories you tell. So
yeah.
And then we get down to rounding this up before we get to the overall unique value proposition, which became your theme. As we're building on this, you can see and listen, I guess, listeners, you can hear how we start from that brand position, functionally, what do you do different, and therefore better? And then we start humanizing it as we go through it with the brand promise, the gift, really understanding your audiences, what journey they're on, placing them at the center of your story so that you can come out as the mentor or guide. And it's just, there's much more understanding and empathy in your entire business model when you do it this way. That's what story brings to it, is understanding and empathy. And of course, when you do understand and empathize with your audiences, they look at you and they say, you get me. You understand the position I'm on, where I am in my journey. I trust you. I want to work with you because you've taken the time to understand who I am. That's what the system does. And it all starts pushing up then to the brand purpose. So Prêt Partez stands for more than just selling you a car. They stand for more than just making money. They stand for more than just employing people. Their purpose is they exist to get people back on the road to financial freedom. And yeah, there's some play on words in there. It's kind of fun, a little punny in some ways, but that also reflects the humor and the friendliness of the brand. But how much more empowering and compelling is that? For someone as commoditized and shark-like business as used car sales are, for subprime buyers, to stand for so much more, helping people get back on the road to financial freedom. That was the purpose that wrote itself, but it also helps then cue up the unique value proposition.
And you know what? I can add on that just for a minute if I can intervene.
Absolutely.
If we look at in Quebec, there are thousands of car dealerships, new, used, prime, non-prime, whatever. There are thousands. We're the only one that can actually stand up and say this is our brand purpose. And if anyone listens that is in the car industry and hears this brand purpose, they'll probably go, "What? What are they really saying here? They're there to help people get back on the road of financial freedom. What does that mean for a dealership?" Well, the point is, and I could understand someone saying so, but the point is, this is what clients want to hear. This is what we do. It's not describing our company as, yes, we sell the best cars at the best price. I would react the opposite. I would say, seriously, is that what you guys do? You do more than that. That's not your purpose. Selling cars at the best, price possible, that's nothing. So when you really think about it, whether you're into the car industry or anywhere else, your purpose is way bigger than just describing your product and your activities. And whenever I do talk to industry people and they understand that this is who we are and this is how we market ourselves and this is our purpose, they sometimes look at me funny. But then again, they see our numbers and, some of the people in the industry have an idea of what our bottom line looks like. And they go, well, these guys are onto something. But there's still, I've said we have copycats. No one in the copycats we have will go as far as having a brand purpose that far away from what the trade really believes they're doing. And it's very important to get that, whether you're in cars or anything else. This is making me not just unique, it's making me way beyond anybody else. They're not even close to copy this. And to empower that within a car dealership takes a vision. It takes culture. It takes everything. And we didn't have anything like that before. So it was created at that point when we worked together, Park. So, this is what I had to say here, but it's very, very important for me to voice that.
No, I'm so glad you did. I couldn't have said it better myself. And it goes back to the old adage that I say often with my clients is this: your brand is not about what you make, but what you make happen in people's lives. That's what your story is about. So you make used car sales available to at-risk buyers. That's what you make. But what you make happen is helping them get on the road to financial freedom. And that is far and away more powerful than any sort of commoditized thing you could possibly sell. It's untouchable. And you've demonstrated, out of the thousands of used car sales people out there, sales organizations out there, your organization stands head and shoulders above them because you have a purpose that you live into and you deliver on.
Absolutely.
So we bring all this together before we get to the final theme / unique value proposition in a brand statement. And I just want to read it real quick because then as a listener, you can hear how these elements start coalescing into a really strong foundation for everything Andre does, for everything you can be doing in positioning your brand, communicating your brand, hiring the right people, and attracting hordes and hordes of customers. So here's what their brand statement is. For subprime car buyers who want the independence and pride of owning a like-new car, Prêt Partez provides the vehicle to repair their credit through honest rates and a fiscal education program that increases the health of their purchase, transporting the buyer to greater peace of mind and self-esteem on their road to financial freedom. So virtually everything that we built within and uncovered, revealed in creating their brand story is captured in that one statement. How do you use that statement? Are you using it as kind of a cornerstone for all you do?
Yeah, but it's more than just a statement because before working together, I mastered in marketing at Quebec University. I've seen a lot of things over the years. I've worked in ad agencies in the past prior to being in the automotive industry. And working a brand statement is something you can do. You can take time to really, believe you write the right one and trying to get it right and having the nicest words put together. But what we've done that's extremely different, Park, in my opinion, and it was truly true and new to me, is that we got to the brand statement after working on a storytelling approach. And this brought us to who we are, as it positioned us. It gave us all the material in order to write the statement. It is not something normally you would want to do without doing that work prior. Mind you, there are other tools out there that help that in order to get a statement, but the way you approached it with us, the way you carried us with making this part of our brand story and incorporating us as the mentor within our clients' stories made us package this statement into something extremely strong where each word is real. Each word means that we're really doing that. It's not just a statement that was put together that sounds right. Every word has its place because it's part of something bigger that we can rely on into all our marketing activities. So yes, Park, we do have that brand statement, incorporated in everything we do. We take chunks of it, we use part of it, it's not just one paragraph, it's everything in there that are that is kind of the recipe of our brand. So yeah, we use it. It's us.
Yep. And so this all then culminated in your overall unique value proposition that became the theme for everything you do. And that comes down to Prêt, Partez, your vehicle to financial freedom.
Yep. Bravo.
And that's when I remember when we arrived at that and I shared that with you, we both kind of laughed and we said, oh my goodness, it just sort of, it wrote itself. It kind of, and I think that's the power of story. Story has a force and an energy all its own that when you invest in it and when you use it to build a brand like yours, that things conjure, things materialize before your very eyes, concepts show up that otherwise aren't there because you haven't taken the time to unearth them or to give them power. And when that one bubbled up, I remember just kind of cracking up. I'm like, oh my goodness, thank you, branding gods. That is beautiful. It's perfect.
I couldn't agree more, Mark. It's just, I'm even 5 years after, I'm still speechless I wouldn't have the chance to go through all that together since. I think it's the first time we go through, the process that we've gone together and going through every point. And I think I just had the same reaction that I had 5 years ago. It's like just taking a long breath and saying, that's it.
Yeah, well, it was so much fun working with you on that. And I you pretty much run a French-speaking organization up there, so I haven't been a whole lot of assistance since then, other than we've had some guiding conversations on, how do you share the story and where. But I so appreciate you taking the time on a Saturday morning here to come on The Business of Story and share how it's impacted your brand and your people, and most importantly, your customers and the communities you serve. It's been just a terrific show today.
Yeah, well, I hope it was long, but I hope that people that do listen understand that it really works. And going through the process is what made us understanding who we are and how to brand ourselves. It's not just trying to catch, as you said earlier, a few elements and trying to put that together. It's going through the process, and that made me make dollars. At the end of it, the bottom line is higher. I'm talking as a business owner now, but I mean, it made a difference, a real difference. And if it wasn't from that, and our will of growing our company would still be small. So we are now largest in Quebec. I know as a fact that there's no other similar companies in the rest of Canada. There are some players in our field, obviously. There are other people, copycats, as I mentioned, that are trying to copy our process of reestablishing clients' credits while providing the service of finding a vehicle for them. But no one has a story like we have, and no one has a brand as strong as we have, and that carries our clients, and it carries us and our suppliers. So it's important to understand that going through the process. And Park, I'd love to have a commission if you have clients coming to you.
You're always selling.
But for real, it works.
Well, Andre, thank you so much, and I can't wait to get up in your part of the world and see what you've built up there and explore that part of Canada. I grew up in Seattle, so I've been all around Vancouver in that area, but I've never been over in your neck of the woods. So I look forward to doing that within the next year.
Yeah, let's go ski together.
Would love that. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you all for listening to this edition of the Business of Story. This is by far our longest episode in the last 5 years, in about 240 episodes. But you know what? To me, it was a masterclass in not only branding, but then how do you apply it? What do you do next on your road to financial freedom, to help build a brand that actually stands for something more? And also, I think what I love so much about this episode, it sort of comes from a surprising place. I'll come full circle when I stood outside and met Andre for the first time in the halls of the San Diego Convention Center, social media marketing world, and thinking, I don't think my purpose-driven brand story creation process will work for a used car dealership. But boy, did he prove me wrong, and just a really great example of the brilliant work anybody can do with any sort of brand when you have aspirations to do more than just make money. When you have a purpose-driven brand that actually can have an impact on people's lives in a very positive way and propel the communities you serve. So just a great example of that. If I can be a service to you, come on over to the Business of Story. I've got a ton of story artists like Andre there sharing how they've grown their brands in different ways using the story cycle system. I have tools and tips for you that can help you craft and tell compelling brand stories on purpose that will sell. And of course, visit my friends over at Sendable. They've got a special traction plan that you can save 30% on right now. You want to share your stories online, do what we do here at the Business of Story. Check out Gavin Hammer over at Sendable and go to sendable.com/park30 for your 30% discount on their traction plan. And until next week, when we will have another incredible story artist right here for you, like Andre, remember that the most potent story you will ever tell is the story you tell yourself. So make it a great one. Thanks so much for listening.